Today, Donna already introduced all the speakers today, Senator Brent Allen, Representative Benny Sablon, and Representative Barrow Amadei. Please hold your questions till all speakers are finished, and our first speaker is going to be Ms. Barrow Amadei.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Well, welcome everybody here and online. I appreciate the opportunity to come and stand before you and give you some idea of some of the things that the legislature was able to get done this year. It was a very strange year, and I hope we never have another one like it. Can you all agree? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
This year, the legislature went into session, and then very shortly thereafter, we took a really long recess, and then we eventually came back. So altogether, there were, in the regular session and the special session, there were 1,490 bills proposed. 58 of those were constitutional amendments, but don't worry, only 7 passed. And 515 were resolutions and study requests. So, I'm sorry, there were 7 constitutional amendments that passed this year and 1 from last year that's going to be on this year's ballot, but I'll get to those in a little bit. Okay. What I would like to cover today is tort reform and insurance premium reduction, and lots of the bills that we passed in order to help businesses, because this is the chamber, and I know you're interested in that. And because we have lots of mayors present, I'll also mention what helps local governments. Okay, so tort reform. The main omnibus bill that survived, that passed, was House Bill 57 by Speaker of the House Shake Snyder. In this bill, there were 4 major components. One was the elimination of the seatbelt gag rule. Under current law, when you go to court after a car accident, you're not allowed in the court to disclose whether any of the drivers or passengers were wearing seatbelts or not. And it seems that if you were wearing a seatbelt, then you may have avoided more damage to yourself and maybe to the vehicles. And so it could be an important issue to discuss in a court case. And so we have eliminated the seatbelt gag rule. Next was collateral source, and that has been improved so that we can reduce the what we call phantom medical bills. And that is where you get bills of a certain dollar amount, but you're never truly expected to pay those dollar amounts. You pay a much lesser amount. And so if we're going to grant someone recovery of damages, your damages should be what you actually paid, right? So this will help to lower the large awards, which helps to prevent frivolous lawsuits. Next, we lowered the jury trial threshold to make it easier to get a trial by jury. Now, if you're dealing with a case that has a smaller reward, the jury is not automatic. You actually have to put up bond money to say that you do indeed want a jury. So that should help. And for 9 years now, as we've been trying to pass legislation to reduce the jury trial threshold, because Louisiana's threshold is much different than most every other state. It was usually the judicial system. The judges came to us, and their fear was that lowering the threshold is going to mean we have an explosion in jury trials, and it's going to cause a whole lot of delays in our system. But we're going to go ahead and try this, because it seems that in looking at other states, their courts are not bogged down. And in Louisiana, if you take the total number of judges and you divide it by the total number of jury trials, we've discovered that most judges would handle about half of a case a year. And so it seems like we have a little bit of room before we overwhelm the court system. So if for some reason our court systems are extremely overwhelmed, we can always come back and revisit this. And the fourth thing is it reforms direct action. And what that means is, instead of the court case listing the insurance company by name, it'll simply list the people involved, or possibly a company if it's a commercial vehicle. It won't list the insurance company by name, because it seems that when jurors see the name of a big insurance company especially, they are more prone to award larger amounts just because they feel that the insurance company can afford it. The problem is, right now, they can go directly and sue the insurance company when the insurance company didn't cause an accident. And so it seems rather unfair to skip right over a person who caused the accident, go straight for an uninvolved party. So the insurance company will still be involved, they simply won't have their name on the title of the case, and so this should help. Now, as far as businesses, let's see. We passed a lot of tax relief and liability protections related to COVID for smaller businesses, local businesses, any businesses. So I'll go over a few of those. I hope that our favorite senator here, Alan, will talk for a moment about his bill, Senate Bill 6. It suspends the corporate franchise tax. There was also Senate Bill 13 that allows for the Louisiana New Market Jobs Act tax credit to incentivize job-creating investments in underdeveloped areas. There was also House Bill 13, which authorizes certain retail businesses to also participate in the enterprise zone incentive. Senate Bill 17 extended the deadline for angel investor credit tax credit program. House Bill 19 authorized retail businesses, restaurants, and hotels to participate in the Quality Jobs program to hopefully generate new jobs. Senate Bill 26 extends the application deadline for the Quality Jobs program. House Bill 37 keeps the Department of Revenue from charging penalties and interest on payments during the COVID emergency. Senate Bill 189 creates a Main Street Recovery Program. Senate Bill 435 protects, here's a liability one, protects individuals, entities, and local governments that follow government standards and guidance during a state of emergency from frivolous lawsuits related to COVID exposure. So that was Senate Bill 435, if you want to go back and study that one. Let's see, Senate Bill 491 protects people and businesses who went above and beyond by making or donating recovery services or products during the emergency from frivolous lawsuits. So if your business participated by donating things, you should be protected from a lawsuit related to that. Senate Bill 508 protects restaurant owners and employees from frivolous lawsuits related to COVID. And House Bill 826 protects property owners, individuals, and local governments from frivolous lawsuits. So here you have a whole host of legislation that is trying to allow businesses and local governments to continue to function and keep moving on without fear that they're going to be sued at every turn for COVID-related reasons. Now, we have constitutional amendments that will be coming up. I don't have the numbers yet because the ballot is still being prepared, but I'll mention these. House Bill 267 allows for the use of the Budget Stabilization Fund for expenses due to a federally declared disaster. House Bill 360, the presence of oil or gas will be included when determining the fair market value of an oil and gas well for ad valorem taxes. House Bill 425 from 2019 is what we call the Love Life Amendment. This is a bill that declares that no provision of our state constitution protects a right to an abortion or requires the funding thereof. House Bill 464 requires the legislature to establish a procedure to determine the expenditure limit. This has to do with keeping the budget growth reasonable. House Bill 525 increases the income threshold for the purposes of qualifying for a special homestead exemption assessment level. Senate Bill 12 deals with unclaimed property permanent trust fund. It actually establishes that trust fund concerning the funds that are being held from unclaimed property by the state treasurer. And Senate Bill 272 establishes an ad valorem tax exemption for property that's subject to a cooperative endeavor agreement, and this has to do with payment in lieu of taxes. So you can see we have our homework cut out for us, because between now and November 3rd, we need to be able to understand all of these and decide how we're going to vote on those. So stay tuned for details on that coming this fall. I wanted to mention also that I'm not sure what my colleagues here have been doing in their off time. We were discussing that. I know somebody's been fishing. But I wanted to mention that one of the things that have kept me busy. Even though we're out of session, this really is still a full-time job. So in addition to anything I've been doing at home, I wanted to mention that many people are still having problems getting their pandemic unemployment claims processed. And if you find people, maybe some of your employees who are struggling with that, please let them call our offices, because we're able to take the information and send it to the higher-ups at the Workforce Commission, and in many cases get that resolved. So some people are just stuck in the process, and we don't want to leave them hanging. Also, what I've been doing a lot of is studying the numbers, studying the COVID numbers. And I wanted to let you know that what I'm discovering is that the numbers that are being presented to the public are not necessarily reality. So please look, please ask questions. If anything looks suspicious, dig into it. I want to let you know, for example, the number of COVID deaths is not the number of people who have actually died because COVID killed them. The number is COVID-related deaths, and there is a lot going on behind that word related. Related could mean that somebody happened to test positive 2 or 3 months ago. So basically the scenarios that you are probably hearing, like on social media, where Fred gets hit by a bus and he's listed as a COVID death, I'm finding that a lot of those are true. If Fred happened to have tested positive back in March, the CDC is requiring Fred to be counted among the COVID numbers. So please ask questions, please demand accountability. We'll be pushing for the labs that are giving us all the results to be investigated, to have some oversight, because I am getting reports from hospitals in our general area that they have been suspicious of numbers. They have turned in swabs that were not used, and even some of those have come back positive. So question the numbers. And one last thing I'd like to offer is to all of our local businesses who are dealing right now with the statewide mask mandate. I have designed, with some help, I've designed a little sign for the door. So on the sign, it will spell out specifically who is required, or actually who is not required to wear a face mask when they come into your business. And it lists those who have medical conditions that prevent the wearing of a face mask, those who are under the age of 8, those who are consuming food and drink, and those who are communicating with the hearing impaired. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm going to be printing up these signs, and I'd like to make those available to any business owner who would like one, because at the bottom of the sign, I'll put my name and my office's contact information so that you as business owners don't have to spend hours of your day answering questions and helping people with this mandate. We can help them to know exactly what it says and who it applies to. So my office number, for those that are listening and would like to call, is 985-858-2967. Again, it's 985-858-2967. If you would like a sign, we'll have one sent to you or brought to you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Representative Amadei. Our next speaker is going to be Representative Vinnie St. Blanc.
Get this mask off so I can get this mask off so I can do a little speaking. And what Representative Amadei said is exactly what everything that I have about what happened at the legislature and what we did. And she did a tremendous job, because when I look at her all the time at her desk, she's constantly studying, constantly. And when I get in there at 8 o'clock, she's there at 2, 7 o'clock, way before anything's there, she's there at her desk. So she explained exactly what bills we passed and what Senate bills and what we really did for the state of Louisiana. Been around the legislature now for 15 years, and I've never seen anything like it. It was a very unusual session. And seemed like every time in my life that I made a decision to do something and start something, tragedy always hits. So it was just one thing more in my life that I started to have these pandemics. And first year teaching was first year of integration. When I went into business, it was the first completely fall out of the all industry. And then when I went into community and technical college, we had a complete failure in education. So this is just right up my alley. I guess that's what I was put here to do. And I just believe in God and do what I got to do. But I can tell you, when I've seen things in that legislature, you know, being for the first time inside the rail, nobody can tell you what it means to be inside that rail. And you learn a lot. It's a lot different from being outside that rail. But I can tell you one thing, during the pandemic, I'll tell you what we did, because we were out of session. And what we did in our office, and I'd really like to thank my legislative aide, Sheila Jones. We had, when we started and our office was open, I'd get there at 7 in the morning and work till 6 at night. She got there at 9 and worked all the way with me. We kept a record, and we serviced over 100 people to get into, to help them with their workforce commission and get their unemployment. 28 of them was direct that would have been in my district, that would have never be able to go through it. So we helped, and that's what we did for quite a while till we went back into session. And our session, like Representative Amadee said, that it was about 80% of the bills and stuff were with the COVID-19 pandemic. So we worked hard. We did some great things. First time that I've seen green, you get to press a red and green button. And red is no, and green is yay. And I've seen bills, Senator Allen, which I got to say is tremendous. We worked so good together. And I've seen bills that had solid green on an HB 2, whereas Representative Bishop, and then it goes through the Senate and then signed by the governor. So things like that has never been done before. We really working hard. If there's any questions, like Merle said, please call my office. We can get things done. And it's been, like I said in my election, you go about working hard, playing hard, and leave the stuff that happens at the legislature to me. I will do everything I can and do everything you can for your businesses. I'm lucky because I have the experience there and I can get things done. And I can say to right now, we're just waiting whether it's being signed. It's signed already. But you'll be very surprised of what I did for District 50 when it comes to capital outlay. And I'm looking at all my mayors and everybody that y'all gonna have a smile on your face. And Senator Holland's got some stuff he'd like to talk about, but I can tell you right now that during the COVID-19, I had every mayor come to my office and every official, and we talked about what we can do and how we can do it, and how we can better District 50. And in 2 months, I think it's maybe in 2 months, we're gonna cut the ribbon on the Bayou Shane project, which is unbelievable. For Lower St. Martin, that means that we sink that barge when the river stage gets at a certain level. And I'm every day doing the high water stuff. I had the Corps of Engineers call me every day because if something would come up and we'd have to get to it, we were gonna sink another barge. But now we don't have to worry about that, and we're ready for the high water, so rest assured those people will really get it. And all the other projects that Sam Jones, Representative Sam Jones had in Cavalier, I kept them all. And they all gonna be funded, and just different capital outlay projects. I was blessed with a lot more money, and I gave, you know, you'll see it when it comes up. I want to thank the people from District 50 for giving me the opportunity to serve y'all. I love what I'm doing, and I'm glad that that I will be able to serve people that I care much about. And I work 24 hours a day. All you got to do is call. And we had a great session, and we have great people that work with us. And I want to thank y'all. And thank you.
All right, thank you, Representative from St. Blanc. Now, Senator Brent Allen.
You want to hold this? Okay. Yeah, you might need that. Thank y'all. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I want to recognize my legislative assistant, Laura Meadows, who's here. Talk about overworked and underpaid. This lady took care of more people's problems, you know, with her and I working together, but she takes the phone calls. She makes people make sure that they get their unemployment, that they get all the services they need, and I really appreciate the job that she does. She really is good. She's right here in Morgan City, so if y'all need her, please don't hesitate to call. My cohorts here, which I'm very appreciative to work with both of them, have done a great job, and I appreciate working with them. They talk more about some of the general things that we did, tort reform and all, and I do believe the legislation that we passed is going to lower automobile rates in the state of Louisiana, which is much needed. More is still yet to be done. But I think it was important, the strides that we made. I've heard about jury thresholds and other things that drive prices of insurance up since I've been there for 9 years. And we finally got some of it done. Is it everything that we wanted? No. But it's a bill that the governor promised to sign. So we worked together with him, and I think we're going to get some real reform done. I'm going to direct more of my comments toward what affects St. Mary Parish and what affects the businesses. In this year's, as you know, I am the chairman of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. We take care of all the capital outlay, and we take care of all the tax measures in the state. First, capital outlay. CPRA, Coastal Restoration Committee was very well funded this year. State, local, CARES Act, GOMESA funds, all together. Their budget for the next couple of years is going to be close to $1 billion. Most of that goes toward restoration. What's embedded in that is the Bayou Chene project. 8 years ago, when I got to the legislature, Bayou Chene and sinking a barge, and this was right after the flood fight of 2011, Bayou Chene was not even in the master plan and was not in line to be funded at all. And over the years, we kept fighting and we kept fighting. And I hate to correct you, Vinny, but all the contracts have been laid. 1 year from today, I feel certain Bayou Chene will be in place and operational and saving parts of 5 different parishes, including St. Mary. I think it's a huge lift. It was a big ask for what we needed, and it was the right thing to do to continue pushing for that. So I'm very proud of getting that fully funded. Some of the other things that we have included in capital outlay, we have funded the resurfacing of Highway 182 from Centerville to Franklin, which is in deplorable shape. We also have $500,000 that's going to be matched with $1.2 million of federal funds to build a brand new welding technology training center at the Sharonton Canal Industrial Park. This will feed employees and train employees to be used throughout the parish. And I think it's going to be a huge asset to this parish. We also put away some money for Martin Luther King rehabilitation, for Patterson, for some gas meters that Mayor Grogan said was much needed there. And very proud that we were able to secure a good bit of money to build a wellness center at the campus of Franklin Foundation Hospital. For years and years, hospitals have only been known to treat people who were ill. Let's think about making people more well so that they don't need the services of the hospital. That's what a wellness center does. There's been 4 or 5 built around the state, one right there in Thibodeau, beautiful facility. They have seen great results, particularly in areas that have low wellness. And obviously in St. Mary Parish, the wellness outcomes aren't that great. If you can inject that, you can make the population more well and give them what they need. Listen, bad habits, the exercise and food intake are the main factors in why we're not healthy. We're going to try to provide all 3 of those at a first-class wellness center at the campus of Franklin Foundation. I look forward to moving that project along. The savings just on the Medicaid side, because we have to pay for all the Medicaid patients that need health care. The state savings just on the Medicaid side could maybe pay for this thing within a year or 2. So look forward to moving that project forward. On the tax side, when I took over as chair of Rev and Fisc, I knew that tax reform had always been something that I wanted to do. So we went to DC and we sat down with the Tax Foundation, the Council for State Taxation, the Multi-State Tax Commission, and several other organizations that actually rate us in the state of Louisiana as far as our tax code. And let me tell you, we're not rated very well. Some simple things that we could do to change that with some of the bills that I passed. I'll go through them very quickly. Senate Bill, Act 216, which is the Marketplace Facilitator Bill. This is additional collection of sales taxes for the internet. It gives us another path. I've always thought that the brick and mortar in St. Mary Parish were at an extreme disadvantage because we weren't properly collecting the taxes that we're due on internet sales. This is going to go a long way toward doing that. Act 309, eliminate some of the pay-to-play on tax adjudication. I never thought it was fair that you had to put up all the money to even get a hearing in court. We've eliminated a good bit of that in Act 307. Act 234, final determination, kind of a technical bill, but it means a lot to particularly the larger businesses. Act 118 gives more time for sales tax appeals. If you got a determination, you didn't think it was right, we're going from 15 to 30 days. This is more in line with the IRS guidelines. A big one, Act 348. I don't know who set this up, but the Department of Revenue was always funded by fees and penalties. So the more fees and penalties they collected, the more money, the more people they could hire, and the more that they could fund their own department. I always thought that at best that was bad optics. They should not be pushing to gather fees and penalties to fund their department. We're going to change that. It's going to take a year, but starting in 2022, they're going to keep 1% of what they collect. So the emphasis will be on them collecting taxes that are due, not on pushing fees and penalties. I think that was a huge step. Embedded in that same bill, you may not have owned. If you own the state money, there was a different interest rate than if the state owed you money. Interest is time value of money. They shouldn't have been the same. We corrected that. That was one of the things that the Council of State Taxation pointed out to us. And the other one is extended filing periods. Act 47, extended filing periods during the declared emergency by either the governor or the president. That's to give people more time, as we did this year, to be able to file their taxes and not be late and have those penalties. The last thing I did, which was in the special session that we just concluded, we did a 1-year suspension of the franchise tax for the smaller cap companies. It had to be a Louisiana company, but we suspended the franchise tax to give businesses in the state of Louisiana a little bit of relief from franchise tax. And that recently got signed by the governor, so I don't have an act number on it yet. One of the other things that we did that some people agreed with me and some people didn't, but you can now have alcohol delivered from the grocery store to your house on an app. People during the COVID were, elderly people who wanted a little toddy in the afternoon were having to get out and risk themselves to go and get alcohol delivered. This is modern times. It was time that we were able to do all of that. I think all in all, it was a successful session, but it was a session from hell. Back and forth, being worried about who was going to get sick, and the mask and the social distancing was not normal business. The staff at the Senate and the entire legislature were champs. They worked through all of that, and they really deserve a lot of the credit for what we were able to accomplish. That being said, it's an honor and a pleasure to serve you as your senator. I've got 3 more years before I'm term limited. I'm going to try to accomplish as many of the things as I can. Continuing on tort reform, so we picked the low-hanging fruit with these bills. We're going to tackle some larger projects, some larger tasks next year during the fiscal session. I am going to try my very best to, if not repeal, to phase out inventory tax in the state of Louisiana. There's a better way to do it. We'd like a better way to administer franchise tax, or find a different way to administer it, to eliminate franchise tax into the future. And also, I'm adamant about finding a way to lower the top rates, or all the rates, on personal state income tax. I think it can be accomplished. We've got some plans that we're moving forward with, working with staff right now. You'll see a lot of those next year. Thank you so much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator Allen. Jim Brady, you have any questions here from me? Howard? Anybody in the audience have any questions?
Yeah, after the governor took pass the first time on, moved into phase 2, and then again, as he was considering phase 3, there was some talk of a petition to eliminate the public health declaration, I guess, that gave him the power to impose the shutdown orders and so forth. Is that still around, and is it a good idea?
Who wants to answer?
You want to take it?
Sure. Thank you. Okay, yes, sir. According to state law, a majority of either house of the legislature may create a petition that would void the governor's emergency orders, and that was done in the House, I don't even remember how long ago now, before June 1st. And the petition simply said that the health emergency orders related to COVID-19 would be void. It also said that for 60 days from the date the petition is filed, the governor would not be able to issue any additional emergency health order related to COVID-19. So it would not limit the governor should we have a hurricane, a flood, or even a measles outbreak. It was very specific in limiting a health emergency issued for COVID-19. The petition right now does not have the required number of signatures in the House. That number, the magic number, is 53 or more. Last I checked, we had 40-something, so the petition does nothing at this point in time. In the meantime, there has been a lot of talk about possible unintended consequences if the petition gets filed. And those consequences that have been listed don't really, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say, they're not true. The consequences that were listed had to do with whether we would lose funding. All of the federally issued relief funding related to COVID-19 that has already been applied for, received, or is yet to come, all of it that's in play right now, if you already qualified for it, ending the order tomorrow does not mean that that money goes away. The petition to end the order is not retroactive. Is there the possibility that we could lose future funding? Well, there isn't any future funding right now that's on the table that I know of. I mean, Congress is still debating a few items, but for example, the extra $600 in pandemic unemployment assistance is going to end by the end of this month. And I checked with our congressman yesterday, and they said that at this time, there isn't talk of extending that. And so that is likely to go away. Even if the governor's emergency order would end tomorrow due to a petition, should Congress decide to extend that, the president had already issued a national emergency order, and he did it specifically so that states that didn't declare an emergency would still be eligible. And also, another thing that the petition does is it does not take away the authority of a parish or city government to issue an emergency order of their own. So for the sake of those parishes and cities that may still have challenges and rising numbers and hospitals that are in danger, or should those come up a month from now, the local authorities would still have the ability to declare emergencies on their own. So this would only end the statewide orders so that those areas that are not having those struggles right now can get back to life, get back to work, get back to breathing. So that's what the petition would do. It's still sitting on a table. People who in the legislature who want to sign it may still sign it, and we don't currently have the 53. Depending on the actions of the governor in the next days or weeks, we may suddenly have 53. We'll see. We just have to stay tuned.
Any more questions? Mayor Duval?
I'll ask all three of y'all. We have some justice of the peace and district judges that are at 70 years old or getting close to 70 years old. And there's a bill that was brought up, I think that Representative Hadley, maybe House Bill 22. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's what it was. Is it passed or has it got the governor's signature yet to move forward with the law?
I don't believe it did.
Well, something passed. We did pass something that
I
allows
don't know
those
if the
over
governor
70 to
signed
serve.
it yet, but that's the
Right.
one I talked to you about.
We didn't
And,
bring that one with me.
I think it's still on his desk, I'm not sure. I think it's still on his desk. I can check into it and I'll call you.
Yo, let me know. I mean, I've been getting a lot of phone calls. from some people.
I have too, and I'm still working with, like I told you, some of the city judges that might be able to be included in this. But it was Representative Bagley's bill. I think it's HB, it was the 22?
I'm looking it up.
Yes. And they have, so as soon as I find out, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to know, did you guys get a chance to talk to the governor
No,
about
for
the school system?
justice of peace,
About the
yes.
school opening up
Justice,
yesterday, and I liked the interview. It was more like the vice president was trying to like say what we need to be doing, and the governor came back and said, we're gonna see what the CDC says. And he come right after him and made a comment that I kind of like felt like, you here trying to tell us what to do, and the governor telling us he gonna go by with the I think the CDC was saying to him what we need to be doing. And so what's y'all take on that when it comes to that?
I personally believe that the schools will open. It's time. I think that there needs to be proper precautions taken for all involved. But I personally believe that CDC is the Center for Disease Control, which is the science behind it. I mean, if there's a compelling argument from the CDC, look, I always lean toward the science. You know, our personal feelings and all are good, but we need to follow the science, whether you believe in the science or not. I personally believe the schools will be open. I believe at some point in time we'll do more harm than good not opening the schools. So I think that'll happen.
So you think that some of the guidelines that the schools they're gonna implement some guidelines where students?
That's totally under the control of Bessie.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, I guess the legislature, if it was in, could legislate toward that, but I believe that's strictly under the purview of Bessie in conjunction with the governor.
Thank you.
Yeah. What, Monday was our committee. We had
Too fast?
the education committee from which Borough is on the committee with me. We met Monday and we had the superintendent of education, we had the Department of Hospitals, and we had the athletic association president. And we started at 10 and we finished at 1. And right now, Bessie and all of them have to have preparations. They went back and did you hear anything that happened yesterday? Bessie had a meeting yesterday to come up, and they have to come back and give us guidelines and stuff. But from that meeting, I felt, and they really want to open schools, but they have to do it in the right way. And I'm like, Senator Dollar, I got to believe in the science because I live with a nurse 52 years. So you got to understand that I have to believe in that, and I have to just say, but we making them have plans. They didn't have plans before. We got them together, and we went back, had them come before us. And Merle, you can talk a little bit about our committee meeting, but it was very, very long, and we got some accomplishments. They have to go, don't forget, they are subject to boards, and boards make their rules. We cannot do anything from the legislature because the boards make their rules. So they were going back, they're gonna come back with plans. But I got a good feeling, that's me, from everybody wants those kids back at school, but there's guidelines that we have to follow. And, girl.
Just to back up 1 second, the bill to remove the age limit for justice of the peace was House Bill 144 by Representatives Green and Bagley. It has been signed by the governor. It's now Act 23, by the way. So for the school reopen plan, a few weeks ago, the Senate Education Committee had a very lengthy hearing as the Department of Education and the Department of Health came together to present the plan at that time. And then just Monday, the House Education Committee had a hearing also, and we were able to get an update on how they're doing with the plan. And for those who may not have been following it, the plan that they're coming up with is a plan for how schools will function under each of the possible phases. So they're setting up a plan for what we do under phase 1, under phase 2, and under phase 3. Everything from how many students can ride on the school bus and how many per seat, to how often the children have to wash their hands, to how many students can be in a classroom and where they're going to eat lunch. And I mean, it really covers a lot of territory. And I do agree that as we move forward, they are working as hard as they can to get schools reopened in hopes that under phase 2 or 3, students can come to the school, even if only a portion of the students come each day so that the crowds are smaller. Whereas, say on Monday and Wednesday perhaps, half the students will come, then Tuesday and Thursday the other half will come, and on the days they're not at school, they'll be doing their work remotely, usually over the internet. That's what the plans are looking like right now for those phases where the number of students would be limited due to health. And we do have to consider the science, and as they're studying, what we're finding is that young children, by and large, are not terribly affected by COVID and not necessarily carrying it and passing it along. And so as we learn more in the science of things, I'm hoping that we'll be able to lift the restrictions even more on the schools, because the school-age children are probably the safest members of our communities right now as far as who COVID decides to attack.
I have a question regarding the schools and reopening, and it's my understanding that from K to 3, they're talking about no mask, and then from 3 and above, up to 12th grade, they'll be required to have a mask on. Who's providing those masks for those kids, and is that going to be something the school board's going to be doing?
That's one of the programs that they talked about, the mass reward. It's Bessie and the Department of Health. They're the ones that most of the time that we talked was about the mask. Mask was who we should wear them and stuff, and they will make those decisions. Then they got to come back and decide. But there's no mandates right now. Everybody's just trying to see what they're going to do. And that's what we're waiting on as legislation, so we can understand what they're going to do. And they got recommendations, but it's still not voted on exactly what they're going to do. So the mask war, we talked a huge amount of time on masks. So it's still got to go through Bessie and to the hospital.
I wanted to add that you brought up masks, and in hearing from parents and teachers, all not only in my district but all from across the state, it seems that even more than how many students can fit in a school bus seat, even more than are we going to be home half the week and at school the other half, the number one issue, the number one controversy concerning getting back into school is masks and requiring students to wear them, even staff. And that's because we keep talking about the science. The science is still controversial concerning masks. This year alone, the experts that everybody turns to, the CDC, for example, has issued what seems to the public to be confusing statements, because 1 month they're saying, well, a mask is really not effective, the virus germ is so small. I think the analogy that's been going around is trying to stop this particular virus germ with a cloth mask is like trying to stop a mosquito with a cyclone fence. So even the CDC has issued statements and reports and guidance that says masks are not terribly effective, and then masks are helpful. So there's so much confusion out there. It depends on which report you want to follow and which report you want to believe. That's the big controversy. We know that it's not natural to have to sit around breathing through fabric or fiber. We know that if masks really were all that effective, then those medical professionals would have been leading by example by wearing their mask in public since March. We know there's just a whole lot of controversy around masks, and that's the number one issue for parents. And that's the number one reason that I'm hearing when parents say, well, I won't be sending my children anytime soon. They're going to opt to do the distance learning because they don't see that their child is going to do well having a mask on their face for 6 to 8 hours a day.
Parents, I can foresee parents coming in and buying their kids fancy masks, and they want to provide their own kids, but there are a lot of kids that probably not going to afford a mask, and we're going to have to do something to help those kids.
That's what they're working through. That's exactly what they're working through, and that's why we had the meeting.
I think the mayor's acting like who's going to foot the bill for all these masks. I think is what it boils down to right there.
Absolutely, that's the reason why we brought them to why we had a committee meeting to.
Any more questions?
Come back.
Yeah, good. She answered my question when she spoke on behalf of the school buses. That was a big concern. I spoke to a couple of bus drivers yesterday. I started saying, well, how you guys going to separate these kids, the older kids on the bus, from the younger kids? So that's going to seem like a problem. Maybe you may have to go to say, okay, all pre-K schools and first through third will ride the bus at this time. Because now you need to have a monitor on the bus with them to keep them separated when you only have just that bus driver on the bus. So those are some of the things I hope that they are looking into too, so that they can keep the kids, because the bus driver can't drive and space you on the bus at the same time. So that's gonna be a problem to separate them. And if you got adults riding the bus, 18, 17, 16-year-old little kids, then now you got a whole lot of other stuff going on. So I'm glad that you mentioned the bus and stuff, and I think we get opportunity to get a little more feedback from that. Because I have a preemie, he was born as a preemie, and I can't see myself putting him on the bus with those kind of things, because if you breathe on him hard, he catch something. So I kind of like, that's what my whole concern is, whether let him go or keep him at home. Right now, I'm in between, his mother and I talking about, we might have to house him right here, because during the course of the year, you caught a lot of colds, and the kid was coming from home with colds. So whatever kid living in the house with somebody that come in contact with cold, my 6-year-old won't even know that, and on the bus with that kid who 18 or 17-year-old who may end up having the virus. So how they gonna space the bus?
Correct.
That's gonna be the biggest problem that we're gonna have.
They do have the forum tonight too, on, it's gonna be KQKI, I think, KWBJ. They'll have the forum tonight for the, school board forum tonight, and then you can discuss that also with them. That's gonna be live tonight.
I'm gonna kind of look at it and see
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Every question that was asked today, me and Representative Andy was talked at least an hour and a half of each situation. Bus drivers, the new superintendent of education, is going to do a tremendous job. You know, he was once a bus driver that he had to drive when he was a teacher. He came out of a small school, and now he knows he was superintendent of Jefferson Parish, the largest, and everything that we're talking about today, we spent hours on it. They are ahead of the game, and they got to they got to hear all this. They heard it from us. Just wait, and we have to wait. If you have anything that you want to add to it, I can call. You can call Burl. You can call any one of us, and I'll give you exactly what went on, how long it was talked, and exactly what everyone wants to have school. There wasn't a person in there that don't want school to open. But there's guidelines they got to follow, and there's a million questions, there's a million things. The mask took hours and something, the bus drivers took hours, all the different deals of keeping them safe and how they were gonna do it. So there is meetings going on, there's preparations, because they have to get back to us, and that's what we did in the legislature. They come to us, they have to have a program. They got to show us what they're going to do. So it's being worked on. And we sat for a long time. And if you want to know some particulars, I'll be glad to answer them too. And I'm sure Burl can answer them too, because she sat through the same thing. Yeah.
If you're going to get to talk about transportation this evening as part of the forum, some of the things that I hope are included to let people know what we're up against, or what the school system is up against, would be this. Let's say a standard sized school bus holds approximately 60 students at capacity. If you can only have one student in every other seat, then your capacity is extremely reduced. How many loads are you going to have to make to pick up the number of students to get them to school? And so the department is recommending that parents be asked, if they can, to provide their own transportation, bring their own children to school. I've looked at some of the drop-off lines already, like a school year ago, and they're already long. So when we start adding, tripling, quadrupling the number of parents in the drop-off line, we might have to think about the opening time for school and broaden the window where the students can be dropped off before they have to be in class, because how are you going to take them all in one car at a time? And then what about the parent who has 3 different children at 3 different schools that all start at the same time? I mean, there are challenges, and they're real life challenges, just to do something that seems as simple as education. So, y'all pray.
Anything else? Any other questions? Ray, do you have any questions?